Hi, and welcome to another edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games for Monday, September 26, 2022. It's episode 28 coming at you. We're in our second season, as you probably know, and we're hoping you had a great weekend. Sorry we had to we're redoing episode number 28 over again because we realized that we didn't give you enough information, actually. So, we're going to start it by looking at this toy line that we're looking at over the next 3 days. And if for any reason we can't get to this week because we're having some pretty bad storms and we lose power, we'll get back to you again soon, very soon. But tonight we're going to be looking at the first in the line of 3 toys put out by Texas Instruments in a line of series of electronic handheld child computers that consisted of a TMC 0280 linear predictive coding speech synthesizer, a keyboard, and a receptor slot to receive one of a collection of ROM game library modules. The first of this was introduced at the Summer Consumer Electronics Show in June of 1978, making it one of the earliest handheld electronic devices with a visual display to use interchangeable game cartridges. The company, Basic Fun, brought back this classic in 2019, although with some minor changes, and was named an IEEE milestone in 2009. What are we looking at? We're looking at Speak and Spell tonight on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. All right, welcome to the show. Hope you had a great weekend. I know I did. And this weekend is going to be this week is going to be filled with great toys, and we're looking at one of them right now. And the first of 3 toys in this week's series: Speak and Spell today, Speak and Read hopefully on Wednesday, and Speak and Math on Friday. 3 toys that all from the Texas Instruments collection. But right now, the Speak and Spell was created by a small team of engineers led by Paul Breedlove, himself an engineer with Texas Instruments during the late 70s. Development began in 1976 with an initial budget of $25,000 as an outgrowth of TI's research into speechless speech synthesis. The completed proof version of the first console utilized Texas Instruments' trademark solid-state speech technology to store full words in a solid-state format similar to the manner in which calculators of the time stored numbers. Additional purchased cartridges, called expansion modules, could be inserted through the battery receptacle to provide new solid-state libraries and new games. This represented the first time an educational toy utilized speech that was not recorded on tape or phonograph record, as with Mattel's See and Say line or the early Chatty Cathy dolls. Now, the original Speak and Spell was the first of a 3-part talking educational toy series that also included Speak and Read and Speak and Math. We'll look at those later on. This series was a subset of Texas Instruments Learning Center product group, and the Speak and Spell was released simultaneously with the Spelling Bee, a non-speech product designed to help children learn to spell, and the First Watch, designed to teach children to read digital and analog timepieces. The Speak and Spell was sold with regional variations in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan. And the toy was originally advertised as a tool for helping children ages 7 and up to learn to spell and pronounce over 200 commonly misspelled words. It shipped without a cartridge in this configuration called simply the basic unit, containing the mini-games Mystery Word, Secret Code, and Letter. Between its release and 1983, the Speak and Spell was redesigned twice under the name Speak and Spell. It was completely recreated in 1982 as the Speak and Spell compact version, a version lacking visual display. And in 1989, the Super Speak and Spell was released to replace the original vacuum fluorescent display with a liquid crystal display. Between 1989 and 1992, the Super Speak and Spell saw 3 redesigns as well, and the 92 Super Speak and Spell marked the last release of the season, or of the series. So regional variations with different speech libraries and different games were released in at least 9 countries with 7 language variations. Because the linguistic aspect of the games played on the Speak and Spell are of essential importance to Speak and Spell titles, separate cartridge libraries were developed for English, including American and British, Japanese, German, French, Italian, and Spanish markets. And beyond the natural disinclination of consumers to purchase games in foreign languages, however, regional lockout does not prevent the use of expansion module cartridges in consoles for which they were not designed. So since the layout of foreign editions is nearly identical, the only major differences being graphics, color, and placement of power head and headset jacks, and the cartridges lacked a lockout, cartridges often bore instructions in multiple languages despite their designation for consumer groups that might not understand the language. In 1980, the original Speak and Spell was redesigned to give it a membrane keyboard in place of raised buttons. This version was nearly identical to the first release and with backward compatible cartridge recognition common to all Speak and Spells, except the first version of the Super Speak and Spell. The entire library of cartridges from the original release were available to the 1980 release. Outside of the United States, the 1980 release was marketed in the United Kingdom under the same name, in German as the Buddy, employing an umlaut in place of the Speak and Spell's apostrophe, and in French as La Dictée Magique, or the Magical Dictation. In 1982, the Speak and Spell Compact was released at about half the size of the Speak and Spell and lacking the VFD screen. The Speak and Spell Compact was a dedicated console, and only one version, the Speak and Write, was released for English markets. Speak and Spell Compact sales were very poor in the United States, causing Texas Instruments to send much of its excess stock abroad. UK marketing manager Martin Finn had the product retitled for the UK, and all existing units were recolored blue and repackaged. Then in 1983, the Speak and Spell was again redesigned. The change was even more minute, however, representing nothing more substantial than a redesign of the faceplate graphics. This version was marketed first in Italian as Grullo Parlante, or the Talking Cricket, as the character of the book for children, The Adventures of Pinocchio, and then later in the United States and the UK as the Speak and Spell, and in France as the Dictée Magique again. The Super Speak and Spell was released in 1989 with a number of major changes. The display screen was changed to an LCD screen instead of the former VFD screen. The keyboard layout was also altered to match the standard QWERTY keyboard rather than the ABC keyboard. And the general structure of the console was also altered so that the handle, which had come at the top of the screen in prior Speak and Spells, was now found on the bottom of the toy, and ergonomic features were added to the shape. Furthermore, game cartridges for the Super Speak and Spell were changed so that they were incompatible with prior Speak and Spells, and the cartridge slot was similarly altered to prevent backward compatibility. The following year, the Super Speak and Spell was again majorly redesigned to return to a considerable degree to its prior Speak and Spell form, and this version readopted the handle-on-top look of the previous models and resumed the use of the original cartridges. The use of the LCD screen and the QWERTY keyboard were retained. However, the keyboard gained an additional 5 letters, 6 in some regions, to correspond with letters requiring diacritics. And it was marketed first in Spanish as El Loro Parlachin, or the Chatty Parrot, and then later in the U.S. as the Super Speak and Spell, in French as La Super Dictée Magique, and in Italian as Grido Parlante Più, Speaking Cricket Plus. 1992, a third redesign of the Super Speak and Spell was made for the Spanish market only. This new version was nearly identical to the El Loro Parlachin save for the name, which became El Loro Professor, or Professor Parrot. Then in 2019, Basic Fun acquired rights to manufacture the Speak and Spell. However, the updated version introduced a number of changes. Primary among these is the replacement of the classic synthesized voice chip, or the TMS-1000, with recorded dialogue that is processed to sound as if it's synthesized. It also offers on-device instructions that weren't available on previous versions. The 2019 model Speak and Spell also replaces the VFD screen with a segmented LCD screen. The use of removable cartridges has also been eliminated. The Speak and Spell used the first single-chip voice synthesizer, the TMC-0280, later called the TI-TMS-5100, which utilized the 10th order linear predictive coding model by using pipelined electronic DSP logic. A variant of this chip with a very similar voice was eventually used in certain Chrysler vehicles in the 1980s as the electronic voice alert. Speech synthesis data, phenom data, for the spoken words were stored on a pair of 128 K-bit metal gate PMOS ROMs. Now, 128 K-bit was at the time the largest capacity ROM in use. Additional memory module cartridges could be interchangeably plugged into a slot in the battery compartment and selected via a button on the keyboard. This technique used to create the words was to have a professional speaker speak the words. The utterances were captured and processed. Originally, all of the recording and processing was completed in Dallas. And by 1982, when the British, French, Italian, and German versions were being developed, the original voices were recorded in the TI facility near Nice in France, and these full bit rate digital recordings were sent to Dallas for processing using a mini computer. Some weeks later, the processed data was returned and required significant hand editing to fix the voicing errors which had occurred during the process. The data rate was so radically cut that all of the words needed some editing, and in some cases this was fairly simple, but some words were unintelligible and required days of work, and others had to be completely scrapped. The stored data were for the specific words and phrases used in the Speak and Spell, and the data rate was about 1,000 bits per second. The video display employed in the Speak and Spell was a vacuum fluorescent display, or a VFD, that was only capable of displaying 8 text characters at a time. The later Super Speak and Spell model had a slimmer case and an LCD screen which could display 16 characters. The unit could use either 4 C batteries or a 6-volt DC power adapter with positive tip polarity. Cartridges, also known as expansion modules, are freely exchangeable ROM libraries that provide additional content without providing additional functionality. These cartridges also are plugged into a slot near the battery compartment in order to introduce new software libraries. Word and game lists are of different lengths depending upon the cartridge, and the word lists in models marketed for different languages reflect the language marketed for. Separate word lists also exist for regional variants, such as the American and British English versions. The word list used in each of these regional models reflects the recommendations of educators in each country. The English, French, German, and Italian versions were all created by a team of non-specialists in Texas Instruments plant near Antibes, France, under the watchful eye of Larry Brantingham, who had patented the underlying technology. Then, of course, it gives a list of all of the cartridges for the Speak and Spell line. And there's some educational games. that could be played using the Speak and Spell cartridges. And then we have some home computer adaptions. Now, there are several commercial retailers offered hardware and software which allowed home computers to interface with the Speak and Spell's hardware and access its capabilities, and Larry Dighera was the first to reveal how that might be accomplished. Percom Data Company offered a PC card called Speak to Me 2, which was installed into the battery compartment of the Speak and Spell and connected via cable to a TRS-80. East Coast Micro Products offered hardware to interface 6502-based computers, such as the Commodore 64 and Apple IIe with the Speak and Spell. A program called S.Peak Up or Speak Up was marketed, which could control this hardware. The February 1983 issue of Computers and Electronics contained instructions for interfacing a Speak and Spell with a Sinclair ZX80, a Sinclair ZX81, or a Timex 1000. Texas Instruments itself later adapted the Speak and Spell's technology into a speech synthesizer accessory for its popular TI-99/4A computer. And the Speak and Spell, as well as the Speak and Math and Speak and Read, are emulated running the original code by MESS or MESS. A number of simulations of the Speak and Spell, which are not emulations as they don't run the original code, have shown up online in recent years in varying degrees of functionality. Often programmed for Flash, these are often the result of nostalgic sentiment for the 80s. Examples of simulators generally available online include SASS, which is a fully functional non-Flash executable simulator created by Mike Green in 1999. Speak and Spell Online, a Flash-based web application with partial functionality created by Jake Smith in 2002. Speak and Spell Emulator, a Flash-based web application with full functionality created by Kevin St. Ong in 2006. And Speak and Spell JS, which is a JavaScript-based web application with partial functionality created by Shannon Carey in 2008. Well, the Speak and Spell has been employed in recent years in commercial music as an instrument, either in its original form or as a modified bent circuit instrument. Artists like French electronic musician Jean-Michel Jarre have used this musical samples for the Speak and Spell's opening sequences in their songs. Artists in various other typically electronic genres have employed the non-musical vocal portions of the Speak and Spell to create vocal parts in their songs. Thus, Speak and Spell generated speech synthesis has featured in alternative music with artists such as Beck, Coldplay, and Limp Bizkit, electronic music with such artists as Royskop and Robin and Kraftwerk, synth pop with such groups as Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, freeze pop and Erasure, trance music, example Soto Fujimori, electro pop, example TLC, Christian rock with the Resurrection Band, Family Force 5, and the pop bands of Cheetah Girls and hip hop Naya Rivera. The English synth pop band Depeche Mode's 1981 debut album Speak and Spell is named after the Speak and Spell. Now, some musicians have also used modified circuit bent, where electronic circuits are customized to create new effects. Speak and Spell units in their compositions. And by opening the Speak and Spell's case, cross-wiring terminals, and installing electronic components such as switches and potentiometers or potentiometers, amateur hobbyists purposely disrupt the normal functioning of the Speak and Spell's membrane keyboard matrix circuit in order to create new sounds. Now, these modifications act to overwhelm the unit's keyboard switch matrix to produce an effect known in the field of electronics as key jamming or ghosting. And this effect can be triggered in the Speak and Spell without making modifications if more than 3 keys in the same row are depressed simultaneously. However, within the circuit bending culture, emphasis is given to the fact that these units are being used as instruments and thus externally manipulable components are often accentuated. Great attention may be given to enhancing the visual aesthetics of the units by adding decorations and repainting bent speak and spells. And these units have been traded and sold online and within the circuit bender community. Examples of artists who have used circuit bent speak and spells in their compositions include Beck, Coco Rosie, Eisenbrecher, Experimental Audio Research, Phantomus, Scrabble, Venetian Snares, and Claude Woodward, the Sonic Manipulator. The Speak and Spell features in various electronics museums, such as the Computer History Museum and the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, due to its seminal influence in the field of modern speech synthesis. The Speak and Spell is also featured in the Game On exhibition as an example of a handheld video game. The Speak and Spell has shown up in various television shows, films, and game shows. A Speak and Spell has a prominent role as a key component of the alien creature's home-built interstellar communicator in the Steven Spielberg motion picture E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Speak and Spells also make appearances in movies such as Pixar's Toy Story and Toy Story 2, where the game devises a character named Mr. Spell, Bride of Chucky, where the possessed doll Chucky plays with one, in Poltergeist 3, used by the character Carol Ann Freeling, and in the music videos for the songs Playgirl by the synth-pop music group Ladytron and Fireflies by Owl City. Now, the Speak and Read was released in 1980, and we'll look at that later on. We'll look at Speak and Math. There's another one, too. And other games like Touch and Tell and Tough and Talkies and all that other good stuff. So we'll look at the next time Speak and Read. And really, we'll have to combine that one with Speak and Math. And the main article for Speak and Math, really very small. But we'll put those two together in one episode for you there. Okay? We'll look at those on the next episode of Jay's Retro Toys and Games, which will be episode 29. I'm Jason DeCanio, and hoping you had a great time with this edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Remember, always to be honest, be real, and keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. We will see you on Wednesday, maybe. But if not, we'll keep you in touch and let you know what's going on. Have a great night, and remember to always be safe. Bye for now.
Don't forget to subscribe to the David3000 Network for great more content like this one.